Lockdown pounds. Oh, we're starting live with me saying lockdown pounds. That's brilliant. Hi everyone, welcome back. And we have got the final installment of the launch this morning for the ever so subtly named Female Leaders on Fire podcast. And you're probably bored of my face now, but I make no apology for showing up because I think this podcast is very, very needed in the world. And I'm super proud of what I've done. And today we have one of my brilliant clients, Susie, that's going to be just sharing some of her thoughts on female leadership. And she's also she doesn't know yet, I kind of have asked her, but kind of not officially asked her to have her own episode that I think where we talk about all expertise. No, noted. All of our expertise in change management, and just when I shared the post about you coming on, I shared your bio and stuff. I wanted to find a picture that was you, and I scrolled down your timeline a little bit, and the one that was just felt like you was one where you at an awards dinner and you were in your gold dress and you were like kicking your heels off, and I'm like, this is it. It's Susie being herself. It's in glitter and sequins, and just having something brilliant.
I feel like I'm underdressed now.
Go change, woman. What are you on about? So do you want to start off just by telling us a little bit about who you are, and then I'll share a little bit about, well, you can share about how we kind of met and stuff as well. I love your recounting of it rather than mine. So
who tells the story best? Yes, I'm Susie. I am mum to Harry, wife to Nicky. I'm currently Chief Exec at the University of Northampton Students' Union. Most of my career has been spent in organisational change, strategy, project delivery type stuff. I'm an open water swimmer. I don't know how much that adds to the story. I say
a lot in my eyes, definitely.
Like
we were discussing wetsuits and the struggle to get into new wetsuits just before we came on live, because that's the sort of exciting women we are. So.
And I found Nick. I found you like you were under a stone. So it was a couple of years ago, and my eloquent way of putting it was basically I was in a pit of fucking misery. I'd lost my way at work. I'd returned after having Harry. Whilst I knew who I was, I didn't really know how to find her and tell me be me all the time. So I created versions of me depending on the organisation, depending on the situation, depending on the audience, and it just got too much and too annoying. And I pinged Nick a message, having stalked her on LinkedIn for a little bit. And we had sort of a quick 10-minute chat, and I just knew from that it was like sort of like a weird first date. I knew that there was legs in
it went well.
I knew there was legs in what we could do and how we could work together. And now 2 years later, we've been pretty much working together for 2 years. Yeah. Whether it's a proper session or a cheeky WhatsApp, it's been it's good. We're good together.
Yeah, we're a good team. I leave her alone for 5 minutes though, and she'll have done all sorts of things. It's what normally happens. And then we get back together and set her on her path. Okay, so obviously the podcast is all about helping women in the corporate world to really find their fire. So it's that stepping away from giving so much yourself and getting really stuck on that hamster wheel and constantly proving yourself, to instead setting some clear boundaries, saying no, really owning your expertise and being bold and brilliant with that, and finding your fire. So it's not just about the grey mundane, yes, I will do that. It's like, this is the stuff that I love and this is the stuff that I want to do. So from your time in corporate world, and you've done some incredible things, what do you think are the biggest challenges that female leaders face?
I think, and I speak from experience, because I think the biggest thing is we're all different. Like, whilst we talk about female leaders, we're not a homogenous group of women that all think and do in the same way. And I think that was probably the biggest thing, where I looked at the people around me and I tried to echo and mirror some of their behaviours, because I could see them succeeding and I could see them being respected and I could see them having great opportunities, and I didn't feel like I had them in the way that I was operating or choosing to operate. And I think that's a big thing, is actually working out who you are and who you want to be. And that, it sounds a bit wishy-washy, I suppose, if it's not a conversation you've had with yourself in terms of, what do I want to be when I grow up, and who do I want to be, and how do I want people to talk about me. And I think that was a big thing for me, was actually trying to create a space for me rather than the me version that copied other people. And I see it in my staff, and I've seen it in colleagues, where women in particular try and become something that they think is expected.
Yeah.
And actually, some of those expressions aren't there anymore, and probably some of them are. But I think a big challenge is about creating your space, owning your space, filling it completely, and being comfortable in it. And that was my own personal challenge. And then, you know, I think there's lots of things that wrap around it in terms of imposter syndrome and challenges about whether we're good enough, and then the balance of, but I'm a mum or I'm not a mum, or I want to be a mum, and some of the burdens that we can carry quite quietly, that people don't see or people don't ask about, and therefore it becomes something that you have to deal with on your own, which as a woman trying to forge a leadership career can actually make your journey a lot lonelier and a lot harder.
Yeah, and especially as you get further up the ladder, it gets more and more lonely. And I think that was again part of the podcast, was to create a community that you don't need to feel like you're managing and thinking about this and on your own. And I did my first face-to-face workshop, I think, in 2 years on Wednesday. The next day I was emotionally like drained and like this social hangover. But the biggest thing that came out of these women working together over 6 months was like, I'm not the only one to feel how I feel. And I suddenly feel like, you know, when I'm having something and I'm not feeling good enough, or I'm not speaking up, or I'm not setting the boundary, I'm not the only one that's thinking, feeling, or doing those things. And just that kind of that solidarity in that, oh my God, I'm not the only one. I'm not some kind of freak that is the only one sitting in this or feeling this or thinking this, just takes away from it being anything apart from just something else to kind of, right, I just need to do something differently here.
Yeah, and I think by creating those people that can wrap around you, whether it's a community like this, whether it's in the workplace, whether it's, you know, a horrendous WhatsApp group, because we're all killed with messages nowadays, but to find somewhere to be able to have a wobble, somewhere that you can feel safe, so you can be like, I'm thinking of doing this. Any alarm bells for anybody? And you can get both some of that counsel, and sometimes you want people's opinions, and sometimes you want help, but sometimes you just want silence or the appreciation, or like a solid nod or a really good emoji that says you're all right. And I think that is
get on with it, girl.
Great for each other. Crack on, flamenco emoji.
I think the current emoji of choice is obviously Find Your Fire podcast. Like, it is like, you know, when you look at your favorite emojis, I think it should be like 5 lines of just fire emoji.
Fire everywhere.
And what would you say, from your time in the corporate world and all the brilliant things that you've done and those different chapters of your career, what would you say are the biggest lessons? So if you could go back to Susie at the beginning, earlier in her career, what would you say? What would you say to her?
Deep breath.
You're going in.
Yeah, and actually it was somebody else that said it to me. And it's probably more eloquently than how I put it. There's some stuff that you just got to let it wash over you. Like, just let it go. Like, because you can fight and you can push and you can champion things for all of the right reasons, and you can do some really great stuff and you can make some really good headway, and it feels great. And there are some days when you can't fix it, shouldn't fix it, can't sort it, not your job, not your bailiwick, not your problem. Like, just let it go. And I think it's that, and it takes, like, I'm not very good at that. Like, it's definitely something I'm still learning to do, but actually being able to stop, take a deep breath, like, work out what you're going to do or say before you do and say it, means that, like, the outcomes tend to be better. How you feel tends to be phenomenally better. And things feel easier and lighter. Like, you know, we've all got broad shoulders, but you literally don't need to carry it all. Like, take a deep breath, go again, or don't. Stop. Sit down. Do not engage.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm a big fan of Glennon Doyle and her podcast. I've just been podcast like pimp now. And she talks about for women, and like this is not, I want to be really clear, and I've said this a couple of times, this is not about burning the patriarchy. This is not about saying men are doing things wrong. This is just like the state of the nation and where we are. And I think collectively we've got men and women that need to work together. We kind of need to work collectively to change things. It's not about laying blame at anyone's door. And she talks about just women having like these invisible tasks, which are like, you know, just if the children are going to school tomorrow, what do they need for school? What are we having for dinner? What about this bill? The car needs to be the car needs to have this done to it, and what the dog's doing, like for us as dog parents, what the dog's doing today, and has anyone fed them, or have they been fed 4 times, because actually we didn't actually communicate that, which happens with our dogs, not anymore so much, because we got sussed. But those invisible tasks that kind of sit in the background. So I know for me as well, I grew up and I saw my mum stop work for 4 years until from I was born through when I went to primary school. And she made that sacrifice, and that was a family decision. And I saw that as an example that it should be family first, it should be children first, and then your career comes later. And she said to me since, like, I didn't have the opportunities you've had. I'm so proud that you've got this international business and career, because I feel like I didn't really have that. There wasn't many role models in that. And I think we've still got a bit of a heritage of that, and the legacy and feelings of responsibility for that. And also we want to change the freaking world because we're brilliant, and it's almost the old frameworks and these opportunities we want to take advantage of, that kind of trying to do it all and be superwoman. It just doesn't work, and that's just burnout waiting to happen.
Yeah, and I think there's so it's I suppose it's slightly different for me, because like I don't have a husband at home where where there's not a traditional expectation that one of us does the dinner or one of us feeds the dog. But I see it at work, I see it in the world, and I am incredibly lucky. I am flanked by 2 wonderful male counterparts who both look after me in terms of creating the right space for them to just leave me to do it, but then they do it with their colleagues and their teammates, where they make sure that there is that opportunity where if somebody gets cut off mid-sentence or someone doesn't get invited in, they create that way to get them into the room. Because when you exclude somebody, whether intentionally or not, you miss out on just phenomenal ideas, creativity, different opportunities, and organizations end up worse off because of it. And I'm very lucky in that sense with who I have in my work with.
Absolutely. So final question, what changes do you think are needed in the corporate world then? So again, if you could think back to when you first started and where you are now, what do you think could change within the structure and the culture of the corporate world to kind of, for you to know that there was a clear path to become the brilliant leader that you are now?
I think it's
not a big one, right?
Yeah, but can I Google the answer? I think it's hard, because I think there are some structural stuff, in any organisation, and that's from how job descriptions are written and pay scales created and interview panels put on, where actually if you are when I was a young female, go back 15 years or so, like it was incredibly hard to get the promotion and to secure the next job, because the world of work wasn't set up for people like me. And I think a lot of that has changed. I do think some of that structural stuff, especially in incredibly big organizations or organizations that have some form of history or legacy, or that sort of really public view, where I think some of them stay in a way that works, and therefore those barriers still exist. But I also think for both male and female counterparts, it's about calling it out. So when somebody isn't invited to a room and everyone goes, "Oh, we just didn't think to invite her," go and bloody find her. Bring her in, give that opportunity. When somebody gets cut off, allow them to go back and give them time. When somebody will know the answer, but maybe they don't have the confidence, walk to the meeting with them, help them have that conversation, give them some of that prep time. And I think a lot of it does come down to giving people your time to help it. I am incredibly proud of the women that I'm surrounded by in work. And my biggest job in what I do is not to be the chief. It's to make sure that for when they make decisions, and when any of my staff make decisions, I'm 100% behind them. I'm there, whether it's awards and trophies or tears and car crashes. They're my people, and I want to make sure that they are enabled to do what they need to do, and they have those opportunities. I'm so proud of them because of who they are. Yeah. And if everybody could be like, "I'm going to protect you, I'm going to protect my gang here," whether it's 50 people or 4, protect them and create that ripple effect and that butterfly, where actually they can go and be brilliant to the next person. So in 10 years' time, they can be sat here having this conversation, talking about how they create space for the women, the men, those people that are exploring their personalities and identities, that everybody has that opportunity to be superb at work, because we spend so much bloody time there. There's no point being miserable. And there's no point enabling a culture or a structure that does that to other people.
Yeah.
That's what I do. I'd change the world, Nick.
I know. Cheers, done. Boom. Just on a Friday morning. Easy. But I do think part of it is with, like I said, this isn't about men or women across the gender spectrum. It's about calling out behaviours. So when there's a sexist comment or when there's a racist comment or a bias or prejudice, it's like, be brave and speak up and say it's not acceptable anymore. It's not how we want to do things. It might have been how things have been done, but that isn't in the world that we're in now. And it's calling it out. And I know I had certain situations in the corporate world that was super uncomfortable with senior managers and saying inappropriate things and acting inappropriately and doing, and I didn't feel I didn't call it out at the time because you were in that fear factor and what to do and where to go. And these people were known for it. But I think now it would be very different. And I'd be just like, what the fuck? And calling it out and just laying down those boundaries. It's not acceptable. Because I think it's down to every single person, because culture is with everyone, to make that change and kind of really drive it home.
And don't get me wrong, like I am fully aware it is so much easier for me to call out bad behaviour because I'm a chief exec and I am in charge. Like I can call it out. Whereas actually quite often junior managers, early career managers, like it can be incredibly hard to say some of that stuff. So, you know, if you are in that camp and you are seeing a behaviour and you don't know how to say it out loud, find the person that can say it out loud for you, because they will and they're able to. Sometimes they just don't see it. So, you know, if you don't feel able to speak out to stop something, then find the ally that can do it for you, because there will be somebody and they'll have your back.
Yeah. Absolutely. So tell us about your book and where can people get your brilliant book?
My book? Oh, I wasn't ready for a sales pitch.
Yeah.
My book. Yeah. So Project Management It's All Bollocks was a book that I wrote whilst I was on maternity leave with a really brilliant friend, Peter Taylor, where we basically tear shreds out of project management as an industry, as a concept and as an idea. And we had bloody good fun writing it. You can buy it at all good retailers. Definitely, you probably can't find it in an independent bookshop, unfortunately, because we're not that famous. But you can definitely buy it through an Amazon, a Waterstones, a WH Smith's. But absolutely no pressure.
No, but if they've liked what you've had to say today, it's just giving people an opportunity. So that's it for today. Apparently, I now have to go and finish packing and get in a car and go on the world's smallest plane to hopefully land in Edinburgh at some point this afternoon. So yeah, but the podcast is now live. So we've now just put episode number 1 live, which is all about self-leadership. So if you can't lead yourself, how are you going to lead a team, a division, a whole organization? It starts with you. So that's episode number 1. And then we've got episode number 2 on confidence out later today. So yeah, but thank you so much for your time today. And yeah, I will speak to you
soon, supposedly.
What's that?
So I'll see you soon, supposedly.
Yes, you will. That sounded a bit threatening. Right, I'm going to go.